Thank you.
Right.
Hey, hello, everyone, and welcome to this session at the very end of the day, one of the few at the very end of the day. My name is Anna Thompson. I work at University of Washington, Bothell, and I am an accessibility evangelist, and I have been for quite a long time. And so I just wanted to share with you 7 things you can do right now to remove barriers for students. And that is making your content universally accessible. And before going any further, I want to give a thanks and acknowledgement to Amy Spielmaker, who is in attendance. She's a instructional designer, webmaster, runner, and all-around person extraordinaire for her collaboration in the creation of this content. All right, so we are going to start with a baseline and some accessibility basics. And by the way, if you just please put all of your questions and comments in the chat, I'll address those at the end of the presentation, so we can get through. We have a lot of slides and content, and hopefully we'll have plenty of time for discussion at the end. So anyway, so accessibility basics. So I'll start with a definition of accessibility. According to the Office of Civil Rights, it means that individuals with disabilities are able to, on their own, acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services, and in the same time frame as individuals without disabilities with equivalent ease of use, right? Without an accommodation. So that's what accessibility means. And why is that important? It makes content usable by everyone. It does benefit everyone, not just those with disabilities. As those with disabilities don't have to wait to have materials converted, promotes a learner-centered approach, and it is inclusive. In these days where we're thinking about a lot of initiatives for diversity and inclusion and equity, this is part of that needs to be included. Here's some disability facts. So according to the CDC website data from 2016, about 61.4 Americans reported they have some sort of disability. That is a lot of people in our country, and that's back then. So it is, and always remember, when we get those figures like that, the number is usually higher than what is reported. Then according to the Center for Talent Innovation report, about 30% of professionals have shared that they have a disability. Many of those disabilities are the kind that are invisible. We cannot tell the person has a disability, so that's something else to consider. Then according to the NCES data from 2015-2016, students reported in the ages of between 18 to 34 that were undergraduate, about 19.4 of them reported they had a disability. Now, this number represents students who have had registered with their local disability office to apply for accommodations. And the number that I have gathered from a lot of my colleagues that work in these offices is much, much higher. It's closer to 30%. And that is still an estimate, right? There are many students that for a variety of reasons do not self-identify. It is a voluntary process. And many times they either think this brings me back to our keynote this morning. One of the reasons might be they may not have the funding to get tested to be able to qualify. Sometimes they think that records they may have had in high school before came with them, and they do not come with them when they come to higher education. And this number also does not include graduate students. So remember, the number is much, much higher. So common types of content, and this is how we share information with our students usually, right? We have learning management system pages, web pages, office documents, Google Drive files, links to resources that we upload, or web pages, right, that are external, PDFs, and media, videos, podcasts, images. And so thinking about content, Usually the most accessible type of content from the beginning, from the get-go, is well-formatted web pages. And that is followed by well-formatted Microsoft Office or Google Documents. And we'll go a little bit in this presentation on what that means. So here's another tip to things that we do in linking to library articles for efficiency and perhaps to make it so it is easier for students to get to readings. We have tended to upload the PDFs to the course instead of linking to the library websites and using those permalinks. So it is better to use the links to those articles or those resources so students can log in and find it, because many databases, and they keep on increasing, offer more than one format. Aside from the PDF to the article, they may offer an audio format, and they many times, and most of the time, they offer an HTML format. So students have a choice. So either use only the permalink or have the permalink available in addition to the PDF that you may upload to the course. Okay, so out of the 7 things included in the title, we're going to address headings first. What about headings? So headings, we use them for a reason, okay? They make content easier to navigate. And instead of looking at a bunch of text, when we have headings, we can more easily find and then jump around. It's like, okay, this is not the section I want. This is not the section, or this is the section I want. We can easily discern visually. So when people who don't see those headings, who have visual problems or issues or disabilities and use a screen reader, then they listen to the content instead of looking at it like we would expect people to do. So something that we've done a lot of times is bold text and make it bigger to create a heading. And that is not a real heading. That is a fake heading. It looks like a heading. But if someone is using assistive technology, it will not be read as a heading to them. So it is not the same. A fake heading is not a real heading. And it is fairly easy to do. No matter what system you're working in, you can always find a drop down or a button that says paragraph, that says format, that says styles, as is known in Office, right? There are always ways to apply headings. So it is our job to always find where that is located and how to apply it, instead of just bolding and changing the size of the content. Okay, so for example, in Canvas, to add headings, there is a drop down that usually says paragraph. You highlight the content or click next to it and select the heading level. Depending what interface you're looking or tool you're working in, the heading level may start at 1 or may start at heading 2, like in Canvas. So you start with the top level and go from there. So think of headings as a table of contents. When for users of assistive technology, to them is literally a table of contents, because they can pull just the headings to listen and figure out what they need to read or want to read. Because of this, we want to make sure that the heading levels convey the correct relationships to all of the sections and subsections of content, because they provide structure. So what does the hierarchy look like? So in this example, we can see that Psych 350 looks like a top heading or a title type, right? And there are some subheadings below that are before the subsections, right? And so this is what it looks like. We usually start with content with I went too far. With H1, that should be the top level for digital content. And I know this might be a little contradictory to APA format that we're used to. We're talking about accessibility. and we're talking about digital content, okay? Publishing, there are specifics to those things and those requirements, but in terms of accessibility, H1 is our title in a digital document. That should be, and there should be only one heading 1. Then it should be followed by heading 2 and heading 3, each representing the decreasing levels of indentation. Okay. Another thing about headings, they should always be used sequentially. We should not skip levels. Okay. So like in this example shown, let's not do H2 and then jump to H4. If we have H2, the next level to be used within that should be H3. Or if it's another something else at the same level, it should be another H2. So they should always be in order, because for someone who cannot see it, remember, they're listening to it, will be identified, and it might be confusing for someone to hear heading 2 and then heading 4, and they may think that they missed something and they lost something in the content. So it is very, very confusing. Next, we're going to talk about lists. Okay, so just like using real headings, we want to use real lists, built-in lists when we're listing items. The lists are great because they help us understand relationships of content and provide structure as well. So just looking at these 2 examples shown, we have items and both of them appear to be in lists. Which one at a glance would seem better to understand? The first option with items listed, or the second one with the bulleted list added? I would think, yeah, that the second one is much better to understand, even when we're looking at it. I mean, just at a glance, we can more easily identify what it is. For users of assistive technology, that gets announced. Someone who cannot see, it gets announced to them that a list is coming and how many items are on that list right away. But that's only when real lists are used. And that's what we call properly tagged lists. So it lets them know that as they scan and navigate the content of a page, what it is that they're looking at, or that they're inquiring or they're listening to. So it is really easy to add. So instead of adding dashes or typing in numbers or typing in letter and a parenthesis or a period, use what's built in. There's usually a button or a drop down similar to headings. There's always an option to insert the pre-built list type of structure. And they differ a little bit, but they're fairly easy to find. Here I'm showing Canvas, WordPress, Word, and Google Docs. So in different locations, but they look a lot alike. Next, we'll look at links. And I know I'm going fast because we have a lot of content, and I want to make sure we have time at the end for questions or comments. Okay, so links or URLs are generally not easy to say, nor pleasant to hear, and visually ugly. Imagine, for example, the Google links to a Google Doc. I mean, it goes and starts with a HTTPS and punctuation, and then it may go like docs.google.com/ and a bunch of characters that don't make any sense. Imagine content that you're listening to, and all you hear is a bunch of that. That could provide it could be confusing and be hard to keep track of by doing that. So users of speech recognition technology can go to links by having the links being read to them. If the links are formatted well, they don't have to listen to all of the nonsense and try to keep track of what it is, right? Because they will hear the link text. Many users will see the link text, right? I see the link text. So just an example here, which one would we want to hear or see? The first option that shows an example I was talking about, docs.google.com/do document/deed, etc., 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 or this link that says list of common accessibility errors, hyperlinked. This is called a descriptive hyperlink. So then again, another way that we use links is we use people, we introduce them and we tell people to click on certain things. So out of these two, the first one or the second one, which one would it be easier? So the first one has some text to introduce it and then the word here, hyperlinked. The second example says submit questions to the town hall instead of here. So the link really needs to speak for itself. So it's not cryptic and it's not hard to figure out what is here or what is, like so many times we see more, click here for more. And maybe there might be a bunch of them listed on a page. For a screen reader user, they will have all of that list of all those links, but they will not know where they go to when they pull those links on a page. Okay. So looking at this example, which list of the links would you find more useful, right? So the list on the left has a bulleted list that says video here, example, example, versus the list on the right that says, instead of video, it says, see, sit and reach video example. Instead of here, it says, see how you sit and reach results compare, and so on. So it makes a big difference what we do, how we put those links together. It's not just putting the big old ugly link behind words, but those words should make sense on their own. Another thing is that underlying text looks like a clickable link and it's confusing when it's not. So for people who cannot perceive color, which because usually links are a different color. It could be the hyperlink blue or some other color, right? But for someone who is colorblind or has partial color blindness, to any underlying text might look like a link, right? So instead of underlining, it is best to use bolding for emphasis and reserve the underline for links. So number 4 is tables. It's it's always a conversation, quite a conversation. We talk about tables. First thing, tables should be used for data and not for layout. We have gotten used to using tables because they're easy to use to organize our content and make sure that it stays in place and it looks pretty. But many times, I mean, tables are not needed. We may use tables instead of using a list. A list is all that was needed for a situation, or perhaps using columns to organize content, or wrap around an image so it looks the way we expect. Okay. Another thing about tables, that for users of assistive technology, tables are more difficult to navigate than lists or other formatted content. It requires a higher level of know-how to navigate them and identify the content within. So here's an example on whether this content needs to be a table. And this is very common on syllabi. Have a little table at the top with instructor information, right? And usually because the table is there to just lay out the content, it doesn't even have headers. So instead of using a table with that information, it might be best to use a paragraph layout or even a list layout, right? If you use a paragraph layout, have a heading. It could start with heading 2, and then the rest of the information below, and bolding could be used for emphasis. In case when we do need to use tables, because it happens, many times we do need to use them, they need to be well defined. They need to have headers. So the users know that the headers call on the content and it can be easy to understand. Tables also, when we do use them, should have captions to identify their use. And depending on the tool that we're using, there are different ways to insert tables and insert a caption. It varies quite a bit, but it's not difficult. But here, let me show you some parts of the table. So a well-formatted table has a header row, And this one is the header over each one of the columns. And this one happens to also have a header column that is a header to the rows, okay? Where the first column is a header, then we have the cells within that. And last, here's the table caption. So those are the basic parts of a table. So here's an example of a bad table, okay? It appears to have headers that are actually fake. and it doesn't have a caption. So when a screen reader reads this, it says table with 3 rows, 3 columns, and it says row 1 product, column 1 price per pound. And if you were to read through this, it will go through the information, but it will not identify, for example, this cell in the 3rd column, 2nd row that says no, it won't say what that is. It will just say no. It won't say vegan no, goat cheese no for the product. So it will, so when read by screen reader, it is very confusing if headers are not being used. Then a better table is one that has been formatted correctly. So the headers that we see are actual headers, table headers. It has a caption. So when it reads it, it's going to read the caption, groceries at the corner market. And then it's going to say row column 1. It will read the column header for each one. And as it reads content, for example, I'll go back to the goat cheese vegan cell that says no. It will say in there, it will say vegan column 3, and it will say row 2, goat cheese no. It will identify. So it is usually good to see what the experience of other people is, so we can better relate. It's not just what we see, but what other people perceive that is important. So it is perceivable and usable by everyone. So basic instructions to add captions and headers to tables. If it's the Canvas learning management system, and it will be somewhat similar to, let's say, Blackboard or Moodle or some others, right? For in Canvas, at least, in the table properties, you select the table caption option, and it is a little checkbox for the caption, and then you select the header row or the column, and then in the table menu, cell properties, you add the scope to headers. So you first say that they're not a regular cell, but they're a header. Then in Word, for example, you make, in the table contextual menu, when you right click, insert caption. That's how you add that. For adding the headers, you select the header row, and then you go to the table properties and the row tab, and then you uncheck a couple of options. And this is very important in Word documents, that the default, which is allow row to break, is always checked, and it causes issues for users of assistive technology. It should always be unchecked. And the second option, which is usually by default unchecked, repeat as header, should be checked. This makes it so if you have a long table that it goes over more than one page, the header will repeat. So you don't have to navigate all the way back to the prior page to see what the header was. So here's a demonstration how to format a table in Canvas, what I mentioned before. And I'll share this slides with everyone. So you will be able to go through this at your own pace, because I know there's a lot of information here. And it just goes through the steps that I already outlined. Okay. The second little tiny demonstration shows the steps outlined for Word, how to add the caption, and then how to add the headers, and how to mark the little check boxes for that first row. It goes to table properties and then to the row tab and the ones that I was talking about, the 2 different options. Okay, one more thing about tables. It is best to use simple tables. And what that means is without merge cells. Sometimes we have to use merge cells. So as much as possible, let's avoid them because it adds another level of complexity to tables. Okay, so this one, for example, this is a common use to merge the top cells of a table to put a title, so to speak, when that information could easily fit in a caption, right? Or if you really need to have more wording, then it can just be paragraph text above or below the table instead of merge cells. It's not necessary in this case. All right. And I'm seeing a lot of comments. Great. We'll look at that. I'm looking at some of the comments on the permalinks, UDL versions, better communication. Oh, this is okay. There comes some good questions here. Okay, we'll talk about those in a minute. And we're at 3:26, so I'll hurry through. Next item is color. Color is very important. It's wonderful. It can add a lot of meaning, but let's not use color alone to convey meaning. It's easy to make this mistake when creating legends and keys for things like tables, graphs, and charts. So let's have other ways to identify information because not everyone can perceive color, right? If we only use color to distinguish information, it can be a problem because some people have a problem differentiating between specific colors, like a common color blindness situation is a green-red color blindness. So screen readers do not access the content visually, so that is another thing to think about when using color. So when you use only color, for example, in these two examples, the one on the left has a table with, it looks like a course schedule with the weeks for the first row and the things that they need to do for the second column. And certain weeks are colored, the font is colored in red. And then there's a note that says, red weeks have additional assignments due. See the syllabus for the full course outline. What if they can't see red? They're gonna miss that, right? Because on the right, it shows someone who can't see red, then for them, everything will look the same font color, either black or gray or grayish, but very, very similar, very hard to distinguish. So a strategy for that is to add text, symbols, or patterns for the information. To continue using color. Color is wonderful, the same as images. Just don't rely on that alone to communicate the information. Okay, give people other ways. For example, the same example again, but this time, those specific weeks are not only red, but they also have a little star. And in the note, instead, we're saying, these weeks have additional assignments due. See the syllabus for the full course timeline. We could also say weeks marked with a star, red, we can say make weeks marked with red and a star contain additional information. So there are ways that we can still use color and still present information that's usable by everyone. Okay. So talking about color, another side of that is that we need to make sure there's enough contrast when we use color. There are beautiful color combinations. They look wonderful. And even the word I usually comes to mind is elegant, but, oh, excuse me. Okay. Elegant because they're muted colors, but sometimes not enough contrast is provided, especially when there are words, there's text and a color background. It can be difficult for some people with visual issues to see. Even for me, I mean, I have used glasses. I use them for reading and even my computer work. Didn't used to early in my years, but this is my little accommodation here. And I know for me, it is easier if there's enough contrast for me to read text in general, right? Things like, you know, when you have text color that's too similar to the background, it is very, very hard to read. And talking about what I was talking about, some of the pretty colors that we have seen, it can also be a trap when we download and find a lot of pretty templates online that they look wonderful, but we may have to check the color contrast because it might not be enough. Okay, so here's some designs, for example, some themes in PowerPoint. You know, we have we have the two left are PowerPoint themes. Even though it's a darker gray variations and white text, but it almost looks like a light gray text. The same with the other one with the light blue and a white text. It makes it difficult. It doesn't really pop. The second example from Canva, some templates, looks pretty. They're pretty colors, but again, they're not very easy to read. Okay. On the opposite side of that, or a better way of doing this, here's some examples of high contrast. They still look nice. They look colorful. The one on the left is a theme PowerPoint. It is clearer. It is easier to read the content. The one on the right is some templates in Canva. It still looks colorful and it looks nice and it looks sharp, but it is also easier to read. Okay, number 6, scan pages. Okay. There's a need for scan pages, and may I say that I try to recommend against the use of creating PDFs. They're ubiquitous, they're everywhere, and they tend to be the least accessible document type there is, because many of us don't remediate, don't make them accessible, don't check them later for accessibility. We just create them. So, but when it comes to scans, we scan many things, perhaps things out of print. We're trying to help students save money so they don't have to buy a textbook because of 1 or 2 chapters, and we're able to, because of fair use, be able to scan those and offer them in our courses. So in general, for everyone, if the scans are done well and they're clear, they're more usable for everyone, period. Just one thing to think about. So here's an example of a bad scan, okay? A bad scan will have text that's cut off, dark gutters, poor contrast, blurring, crooked or rotated pages, handwriting marks, or my favorite, having 2 pages on 1 page and then sideways. So those are things not to do for when we do a scan. There should be, for starters, 1 page per page of the scan. So here's an example of a good scan. Clear text, good contrast, straight pages. There's no handwriting marks, no watermarks, no highlighter, and 1 print page per electronic page. Much easier to read, right? Oh, a scan PDF can be a nightmare on a phone. No kidding, no kidding. And that's another thing about PDFs. They don't adapt well to smaller devices. Our phones have become our other computer. So before scanning, here's some general recommendations. So set that per inch between 300 and 400 and on the scanner. Librarians, yes. Did I hear something? Oh, okay, sorry, I thought I heard something. Okay, our librarians are very helpful, and they provide a lot of information. So you can always ask, or your local office, learning technology, or digital innovation, or faculty support. They're always very helpful to help to faculty or users when they need to figure out what are the best settings for scanners. So another setting that we recommend is usually scan in black and white, or 24-bit for color scans. Also, turn on the optical character recognition, or OCR, so you're able to create a text base and not an image PDF, because no screen reader is going to be able to read an image PDF. And that makes it also searchable. And if you're able, once you've created the PDF, open it in Adobe Acrobat DC to check the reading order and make sure it has tags. There's a little wizard built in to make accessible. That makes the job quite simple. It does take a little bit of learning, but they have a wizard built in to do that for you. And number 7, alternate formats. So alternate formats provides students with choices and flexibility. It's part of Universal Design for Learning. It is part of Universal Design, and it enhances in student learning. Okay, and it gives them more equal access to content. Captions and transcripts help everyone. That's it. That's an alternate format for videos or for audio files, right? Especially with people with disabilities, for people who want to read and listen at the same time, or perhaps they need to, for English as a second language learners, and many, many others. We have busy students who have found a way to convert their readings onto audio files so they can listen to when they're working out. Maybe they're doing housework, taking care of their kids, or maybe they're driving to from work or to from school. Well, maybe not so much right now, but maybe again for whatever else we're doing. And then when talking about video streaming, here are a couple of options how to add captions. For example, if it's YouTube, you can add the automatic captions from your uploaded video. You can add your own transcript or upload a caption file if you have it. At University of Washington, we use Panopto, so I always include that one. There is a built-in option in Panopto that allows you to import the automatic speech recognition, and then you can edit that to make it accurate. And so a couple more, now that we become so well acquainted with Zoom, right? And Zoom keeps on getting better, I think, that we have the automatic transcripts that are available and it's on for this session. And if you record on the cloud, you get one created anyways. And you can download that file. It's going to have a .vtt that you can use as a transcript. You just remove the timings off of it, so it's more readable. But you can use that file. And then if you were to download that video and upload it to YouTube, for example, you can use this file to upload the captions and then fix them. In Canvas, there is an option, and I have the instructions here. You have to play the video, and there's an option to upload captions, and it gives you an opportunity to add that file for video files directly uploaded to the Canvas LMS. Okay, talking about other media. In general, our libraries have wonderful, wonderful resources. Many of the databases of our multimedia are already captioned, like Films on Demand, Canopy, PBS, right? Canopy is one that if it's not captioned, a librarian can send a request to be captioned. It takes a week to 2 weeks. Podcast, NPR, National Geographic, high quality podcasts will always have a transcript or captions with them. And then along with that, because this is all part of multimedia, using images is wonderful and it's great. Let's make sure that we have alternate text attached to those, describing what the function of the image is in context, refraining when we writing image out for picture if it's not necessary. Just describe the image, what's the meaning of that in context, and keep the alt text. Oh, I have 240. The latest recommendation, and I forgot to update this, is to keep it under 100 characters. So here's a little demonstration to add alt text in Word. It's really, really cool. Makes it really easy to add it in, and they even have a little box you can check if it's decorative. Okay, in Canvas, you click with the new editor and the image options, and you can describe the image. You can also check the little checkbox and mark it as decorative if it's truly decorative. Another media that we've become very acquainted with is infographics. They're wonderful. They communicate a lot of great things and ideas and data. Let's make sure we have a text version available with it. Many of the ones that you find out there already have one created. It's just a matter of looking for them. Here's an example of an image with a description. And sometimes a description can be within the text surrounding, or you can add specific description, longer description if it's necessary for the content to be understood. Okay, we made it through and it's 3:40. Yay! We have a little bit of time left. All right. So let me go back in here. So, okay, so I have a question here from Vicky. Do you still recommend tables for rubrics? Okay, so if you're creating rubrics, with table, that is absolutely fine. Just make sure you format them correctly, right? Make sure you have headers on that. If you're uploading a Word document with a rubric, or if you're adding a table, I don't know, or I don't recall if Moodle or some other, or Blackboard, they have a rubric option where you can add a rubric. Canvas does. So it already inserts itself as a table-like tool. But if you're creating one and uploading and attaching, just make sure that it is a well-formatted table. That's the main thing. And then Ralph asks, are tab stops okay as an alternative to simple table layouts? I don't understand what tab stops. I don't understand the question. Could you expound, Ralph? Let's see. You should be able to unmute yourself. Is Ralph still here? I don't see him. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Oh, hi.
Yeah, I was typing in the chat. So basically in a table in Word where you would put in faculty information, office location, and stuff like that, instead of a table, if we just use tabs, which are fixed spaces.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. So there's one thing about that. Whenever you use add empty lines, empty spaces, extra ones, or even with just the space bar, it is not recommended to just add spaces that way, because for a screen reader, what they hear is going to be space, 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 tab, 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 empty line, empty line, empty line. So it is not recommended to use those. Instead, use the formatting tools in Word, for example. If that's where you're, if let's say you're using Word, you can create columns, you can customize the text, you can add extra space by using the little space tool. Is where the bar is close to the list, the built-in list, and it's usually a similar tool in Google Docs. There isn't one in Canvas, unfortunately, but if you format things in something like Word, then you can bring that formatting in, so it doesn't have those extra spaces. It says that Brightspace has these options out, so that's good. That's good. Okay. Amy, some PowerPoint themes need to be destroyed. Absolutely. They are too tempting for people to, and some of them are really bad anyway. A scan PDF can be a nightmare on a phone. Yes, it can be. So I'm going to share this question again about the slide deck. I'm going to share it. And let me put the link right here. Do I have it in there? Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to put the link to the survey first because I had copied that. And let me get out of the presenter mode and get the link to this.
Hey, Anna, I'm going to go ahead and interrupt since it's a moment where it's good. I'm going to set you as host for this. Okay. You are dropping in the evaluation chat, which is the only job I had left as a moderator. So anybody, when you are done with this marvelous session, wants to come over and join us in the social, I'm going to go get that spun up. But thank you, Anna.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen. See ya. All right, so I put in the chat, so both the link to the survey that she was talking about and also a link to the slides. So they're in there. So, oh, and then, Kristen had mentioned that she uses captions and everything she can. That's wonderful. Okay, so there's a comment here about the importance of caption, but if you have the option to turn them off, avoid cognitive overload. Yes, that brings us a good point. So captions should be available, but you shouldn't have it on all the time because people still need to have choices. Absolutely, Sue. That is a great comment. So that is what's called closed captions, when you're able to turn them on and off. Even within the Zoom meeting, you can turn them on and off. When they're burnt in, they're called open captions. And that's the ones, I mean, sometimes that's the only option in certain environments, like some of our social media. However, if you can stay away from burnt captions, it is more accessible to have the kind that can be turned off. Jody, saw information recently about the transcript could be used for an audio file, but captions for a video. Yes, that's absolutely acceptable. You should always have a transcript with an audio file with because many formats, let's say you're uploading podcasts to SoundCloud, for example. I haven't found a good option to just add the captions right there, but you can always add the transcript fairly easy. There are ways to get the captions in there too, but it takes a little bit more work. Yes.
So my
Yes.
my question is a transcript acceptable for a video? Or
right. So for a video, it is best to have captions, but at minimum, if you can offer a transcript, please offer a transcript. The only time where it might not work as well is if you have a video that has timed actions. For example, let's say a laboratory experiment that has step by steps and everything is timed, then captions will work much better than a transcript. But otherwise, or sometimes all we can do is the minimum, at minimum have a transcript available. Yes, thank you. Captions can interfere with Zoom with cursor focus if you're trying to type in a Zoom chat. Yeah, that's true, it can. You can turn the captions on or off. That's why the choice is important, having that choice. And if the live captions are turned on, or you have a captioner doing the captions, you can always open the full transcript that opens on the side window. That way it won't interfere, and you can turn off the captions themselves that come on the screen. So what about classroom settings? If they want, it makes people reveal disabilities. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think the important part about that is communicating with students, touching base with them one-on-one, asking them what they need. A good strategy that I've used, I know other faculty members have used, is meeting with their students one-on-one and say, hey, what can I do to enhance your learning, to help you learn? What can I do, or what am I doing that hinders your learning? To get some feedback, so you connect with them, and then you're able to better help those students. So, Amy, thank you. Moodle has a rubric. Thank you. I could not remember if it did. I haven't used Moodle for a while, so I appreciate it. Okay, so, all right. So any more questions? We have a couple of minutes left. If you want to just type it in or speak or comment on something, you're welcome to share. Okay, I think this quiet silence usually means, okay, thank you so much to everyone for coming. You're welcome to contact me. My contact information is on the last slide. Is thomana@uw.edu, and I'm also on Twitter, edtechanna with one N. So contact me anytime. Love to hear from you. So thank you for joining. And I will stop the recording now.